Hey, I'm Adam from Built Sharp Knives, and you're listening to the Bladeology podcast.
Yeah, that's about it.
That about it? All right.
Okay.
Well, that being said, let's jump into it like we do every week. Welcome to another episode of the Bladeology podcast. I'm Jeremiah Burbank with PVK Vegas.
Nick Chuprin with NCC Knives.
And Elijah Isham of Isham Blade Works.
And this is Philip Booth Knives.
Awesome. Philip, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the podcast. I know we're all looking forward to having you on and talking to you about your awesome knives. I know there's a couple special ones I want to ask about, and I know these guys have some too. Let's start it with what you're working on right now. What's on the bench?
On my bench, I have 5 scale release minnows that I'm working on to go to Kentucky. If I get them finished, if I don't, I'll take however many it is that I'm working on. Yeah, Nick was just talking about having 22 knives.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And you know what? When I do a big batch of knife, a big build, it's like 5. I like 2 or 3 better.
Oh, okay, so all right, so you're working on Kentucky right now. We're getting in that crunch. That show is let me think, the first week in December.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Okay.
December 7th, I think. It's a whole week into December this year, but yeah, I've got some other knives, stashed away, so that that I don't, that I'll be taking down there. That I'll be good.
Yeah, they moved it a week back this time. Usually it's the December 1st. They moved it a week back, which I think is better.
Yeah,
It's not as close to New York.
Yes.
It's also not as close to Thanksgiving, which is good.
Yeah, it'll be yeah. I'm excited. I always like doing shows, though. Of course, I'm an old guy, and we used to do a lot of shows, because all the knife clubs would put on their little local show, and as a custom maker, you could drive a couple 100 miles, do a show for a couple of days, sell a couple of knives, buy whatever it was you needed at the show, and come on home. And those kind of little shows are well, they're dwindling. Times change. I'm not even saying,
So that's a great segue. Speaking of shows, we love talking about shows. We all go to lots of them. What was your first knife show? When did you really start going to shows?
My very first professional knife show was in September of 1995 on the south side of Chicago, down on Halsted Street. There again, it was a club show for the Chicago area. Heck, it doesn't matter. It was the Chicago Knife Club, and that's 1995 in September.
So it's a knife club. I think we've might have heard about this once before, but
Yeah, so usually back then it was more clubs. I don't know many that are active. The Brooklyn Knife Clubs is actually still active. It's like every second Wednesday of the month. I went maybe last time like 6 years ago. I haven't been in a while, but I know they're still active. A guy called me at Blade Show this year. He's like, "Hey, you got to show up at the knife club." I'm like, "Yeah." It's a ways away. It's mostly like classical slip joint guys and fixed blade guys at the clubs.
got to keep it going, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one was in Chicago. How was that show? Was there any excitement there? Makers that you were looking to meet or hadn't met that would eventually go on to be somebody who's someone?
Well, how was that show? I had worked all summer. I was making slip joints, big ones actually, and case saddle horns, 2 blades, and then I'd do a leather pouch, so you could hook it on your belt. And I had gone to a class actually from Bob Cargill. If any of you remember Bob Cargill, he's really old now. He was a good man. He made all of the Cripple Creek knives, and he was big in the National Knife Collectors Club. He made all their club knives. He was a busy guy. Anyway, I went down to his home, his shop, and he showed me how to make a 2-blade slip joint. And I came back home and took off from there. So when I got to the Chicago show, okay, I was scared and excited, and I was there for 3 days. It was a 3-day show, and I never sold a knife. Just got my buns kicked. Yeah, and it was like, man, it was a long drive home,
Oh boy.
And were you were a hobbyist at the time, part time?
Yeah, I was hobbyist at the time. I one of my memories from that show is there was a knife maker from Michigan that I went over to his table and met him and talked to him. Mr. Bob Enders. He's long passed now. And Bob Enders came over to my table, and he's leaning on my table, and he's picking up my knives, and he's opening them, closing them, and wiggling them, and feeling the back, and he says, he goes, "Well, son," he says, "these are pretty nice." He says, "You selling these knives?" And I said, "Well, not yet, Mr. Enders." And he looked at me and he said, "Son, you ain't never gonna sell these knives." He says, "You got brass on them and you got wood on them." He said, and he's picking up my knives, and he says, "All of your adjustments are correct. All the knives are good." He told me to buy some ATS 34, some 416 stainless steel, 410 for the liners, and put jig bone on my knives. And he says, "They'll sell right away." And that's almost the last piece of wood that I've ever used.
I'm literally looking at a wood and brass knife you just made. Oh, that was just 2017. That weird automatic with the rotating thumb release, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as you mentioned that, like I literally just scrolled right to that. I was like, "Oh, there's brass and wood right there."
Yeah.
Hey, there ain't nothing wrong with brass and wood.
So that's great, because ATS 34. I mean, what were you using at the time on that knife?
Oh, I was using carbon steel.
Oh wow, okay.
95. And nickel silver brass liners, nickel silver bolsters, and I was really just grinding and making knives for the sake of, how that's how you learn stuff. You, as my son would say, you take it to the woodshed, and you just do it, and you do it, and
Learning
and
by
so,
doing. Yeah.
And so consequently, I did not sell a knife at that show, and I came home, and I was working full time as a rural mail carrier, and it took me, I don't know, a week before I could even open up my knife case and look at my knives, And I opened up my knife case and I looked at them, and I'm checking my adjustments and my half stops and everything. They're pretty good, And I look at these, I go, yeah, well, they're not that bad. Well, yeah, maybe I'll buy some of that ATS 34 stuff and a kill to do my heat treat, and that was the last. That first show there was the last show that I didn't that I failed to sell a knife until like 2008 when the bottom dropped out of the market.
Mm.
You know.
So yeah, the 2008 that I wish I saw the mark how the knife market went then. As a full-time maker, I always think about that because my first year was 2009, and at the New York show, and you were actually one of the first custom makers I saw. I don't remember if it was 2009 or 2010 when you had the car knife.
Yeah.
At Nick's. But 2009 looked like it was great for the industry. That was my first year, so I'm very interested how that year prior went. Talking to a lot of guys, everyone's like, "Yeah, it was bad."
Yeah, it was yeah, it was bad. It was bad for a lot of things, a lot of things took a hit. The antique market, I mean, there was a while when everybody wanted antiques, and after 2008, that went down some, at least around here, which is here's Michigan, right, right in the center of the state here. But yeah, things are good.
So basically, the knives functioned correctly, but his instruction was more on the dress of the piece and less on the function, though.
Yes.
Okay.
Materials. Seems to be what everybody is concerned with on a custom folder these days.
That's how everyone moves on. There's a lot of classic guys. I go to shows and I see they have beautiful knives and they don't sell anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll come back the next year and then they kind of realize stop using the bone and this and that and just do the same knife and just throw some carbon fiber on that thing and it sells.
Yeah, I've seen a lot recently, past few years, like everybody gravitates toward the materials first and not so much the knife anymore. I don't know.
I think it depends on the maker a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a material thing too. I actually had this conversation with my father explaining to him how like 5-6 years ago materials had like a 1, 2, 3 year shelf life sometimes where something was in demand for a while, and nowadays things usually have like a 4 or 5 month shelf life. Nothing really stays popular for too long. You have to constantly buy materials and make sure like I stockpile a lot of stuff. I have stuff that I bought 8 years ago that hasn't been available for like the last 4, but nowadays like there's not really point to stockpile because you have to buy it and use it right away.
Yeah. And Phil, you've used your fair share of materials.
Yes, I have.
All kinds of stuff. Damascus and jig and mammoth, and I'm just seeing all kinds of crazy stuff.
He uses a lot of mammoth.
I do use a lot of mammoth. That's another reason. I try not to jump around here, but it's another reason why I shy away from New York is they have laws against ancient ivory, and nobody really needs any trouble with authorities, and so, but yes, I do like to use ancient ivory. It is my favorite handle material. It's beautiful. It's stable. It's heavy. It's grippy. It's nice for a scale release. Especially my little scale release minnows. It's ivory is very good for that. Even when it's sanded and polished smooth, it's still grippy. Where pearl. Oh my goodness. You put pearl on one of those and it'd be hard to open. There's no traction.
Sure.
Yeah, that law change in Jersey and New York literally killed the show that's in March, the Eastern New York show. That year, just like, oh well, all those makers that go to that show and all the dealers that go to that show is like, well, we can't do that anymore.
No.
And they're like, yeah, we're gonna cancel this one.
So Phil, how did you get from the slip joint at your first show to the minnow? Take us through that formative period.
Okay. It's so 1995, Bob Cargill, and I was making slip joints. 1999. No, excuse me. I'm gonna go back. 1997. I went to Arkansas and I took one of those liner locking knife making classes from Mel Pardue. He did so many of. And I, went to class with, so that was a big class. It was 4th of July too, hotter than heck. Um, and learned how to make the old liner lock, and met Mel, and there was a lot of a lot of big name guys there that were in that particular class.
Was Joe still making knives with him over there during that time?
Yeah, Joe was making knives.
He
Joe
still
was
was
not.
making those.
Yeah, Joe was not at that class, but yeah, he was. Joe's a good guy.
I'm very familiar with that whole family, so that's why the grandson Rob Carter, I do a lot of collabs with him, and I've known him for years, and I've known Joe and Mel for years as well. So I was wondering, around that time is when Joe kind of stopped making knives, I believe.
I believe so. Yeah. Mel was just fabulous.
Oh, Mel's still a tank. I ended up sharing a table with him at this past USN because Rob couldn't make it, and I had some of the collab knives with me. And he brought 8 knives to the show, and every time I see Mel, I'm like, "Hey, what you working on?" He's like, "Oh, I just finished all these for the show, and I'm working on this new mechanism and trying this new thing, and can't get this." He curses a lot. He's like, "Can't get the son bitch to work right, but I'm gonna get it going." And he's like, it's always good to talk to him. He always comes up with some weird things. Some of them don't make sense. I'm like, yeah, well, is that mechanism really needed? He's like, not really, but no one's done it, so why not?
Mm-hmm.
The engineer brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was, man, I got a Mel story. So down at that class, there was however many guys, and they're all making a liner lock, and, so almost the end of the week, we had our knives. They were working really good. It was cool. And, man, that the blade tip on my knife, of course, it wasn't centered, yes, what's one of those, it's the bane of everybody, and so I took my knife up to Mel, and this was about 3.5, 4-inch blade, liner lock. And I said, Mel, I can't get the blade to center. And he goes, well, let me take a look. So he looks at my knife, he opens and closes, close it, Finally he goes, okay, opened that knife up, grabbed a hold of that blade, and bent that sucker into a U around his thigh. Man, he's just a push on this sucker. And I'm looking at that, and I go, holy man. He gets it back up there like that, and he goes, dead center now. And he hands it back.
I've definitely seen him do that before. He tried to do that one of my knives at the show, and I was like, wait, check the pivot, and it was just the pivot was loose. Like, I saw him going for the knee, and I knew what he was about to do. I was like, whoa, Mel, wait.
Yeah, that's old school right there.
That's how to get that blade center.
Well, I mean, on slip joints, I think that'd work just fine on some case knives, but
it works on a lot of folders, to be honest, too. If people's like pivot tolerances are pretty loose and stuff like that, you could kind of shift the whole frame to get it to go.
Yeah,
you'll be surprised.
Sure is nice when you don't have to do that, though.
Oh yeah,
it's the small things.
Yeah. So, this was a long way of getting around to minnows, but while I was making the slip joints and using jig bone comes and it's 5 inches long. Generally speaking, you're using about 3.5 inches on a folding knife. And of course I would, save, how it is, you just save every single thing. And I had these squares of jig bone, and, I wanted to use them. I had pearl, I had ivory, that was the same little stubby pieces. So instead of making a small knife with, a little twink blade, I decided I'd make a short and very wide knife. And the first ones I made were late 1996. And they were, the deal is they looked like a baby sunfish knife, like a case, classic pattern sunfish or elephant toenail, looked like a sunfish.
I can see the resemblance to an elephant toenail for sure. I never thought about that.
Yeah, well, and especially back in 1996, they really did look like that. And God, I'll tell you, honest, they weren't even that good. They were little lockbacks and stuff. And went to the show in Las Vegas, and I took a half a dozen of them, talked it over with my wife, as a matter of fact. And I said, suppose we should take these. And she said, yeah. And, I had other knives on my table, but it's all anybody really wanted to look at was these little short, fat, weird things. And I explained to people, well, I made this so it goes down into your watch fob pocket on your blue jeans. And, they sold them all. One went to Japan, it was very cool, and, it's one of those times in my life when I shut up and listened. And I came home and I made more of those. And, for a while, for a number of years, I changed the design every year. So there's a lot of minnow model numbers, so it starts out with a 96 and 1997. It was, made a little bit better, needed a tail on it so that when you put the knife down into your watch fob pocket, you could let the little leather tail stick out and you could pull it right out. Started making little push button automatics, and really the rest is kind of history. I'm still making them, and and I get asked, I honestly, I never started to make a small knife, I never did that, but the niche I found the niche, or the niche found me, whatever. And excuse me. And so I have made a little short bat knife and sold them since 1996, and it's what I'm going to take to Kentucky. I also, I still like to make big knives, all kinds of things, but the minnow ended up being my bread and butter knife.
The flagship, so to say.
Yeah, flagship model.
Yeah.
At this point, it's like an iconic model.
Yeah.
Now,
thank you.
Now you have a similar version that's a frame lock, which I owned. I don't remember if it's called a twerp or a pipsqueak. I think it was a pipsqueak.
It was a twerp.
Oh, it was a twerp. Okay.
Twerp.
No, because I had one. So when I found his work in my second New York show, 2010, and like for 3 consecutive years, I kept coming back to his table, and he had the twerp. He had a longer model, about a 3-inch blade or 3.25-inch blade, and that's what I wanted. And then like year 3 of finally coming around, every time I ended up buying a twerp, and I had it for a little while. But also during those 3 years I kept coming by, you also had the car knife that I believe you built 2 of. The one with the pop caps.
Yeah, actually, I built 15.
Oh wow.
15 one of a kind, different hot rods. There were chop top sedans, roadsters, coupes, a 57 Chevy, and so they were different.
They definitely were. And every time you flipped one, the whole show turned around like, what the hell just happened?
Wow.
Yeah, when I say the whole show, like I mean the whole show. So
was there a specific noise to it or something?
Do you want to explain how the whole system worked with the pop caps?
So sure. These were Hey, can I regress a little bit?
No problem.
Uh,
We
Yeah,
kind of bounce
absolutely.
back and forth as we talk. So
yeah. So the first hot rod that I built, um, I built it. I built it for myself because I was at a time when I was really rather tired of I didn't know what like always I didn't know what to do and I didn't know what to build. I don't know what should I do this, should I do that, and I said and I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a knife that everybody's going to hate. Um, and,
I can know
and,
the feeling.
Yeah.
I can relate.
and and because most of the knives at that time were very thin and almost beautifully feminine. And I go, oh man, I've always had trouble competing with everybody else, because it's like, you kind of got to do your own thing or else you're copying somebody else. And God, if you're going to copy somebody else, it's like you're not going to get it as good as they got it. So, and I had a particular beef, um, with like at Blade Show, and they would have the art knife category, in their awards, and all the awards. Well, I love entering those award things, because it's fun. You get to see the best knives in the show, and I used to enter something in the art knife, and which I knew was a joke, and I knew I was never going to win, but by God, they were going to pick it up and look at it anyway. Um, and Art Knife always went to the most beautifully engraved and embellished knife. And I asked myself, well, why don't engravers and embellishers have their own category? And then Art Knife can be for like weird, wacky stuff, you know? Well, it didn't work. So I decided I might as well make a car. And as they progressed, these were big switchblades. You would push on the header of the car, and that would make the blade fly. They were like a lever lock, and it was all hidden. Um, and these knives, they weren't embellished. By the time if you took all the embellishment off of one of the hot rod knives, there was nothing left. You take all the embellishment off of a beautifully engraved knife, and you still have a knife.
I think that's better though, what you did, because you made something that was, its own structure. It's its own thing, not just a knife with engraving on it. You kind of invented a new thing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, which is truly unique.
Yeah, they weren't real well received.
I thought it was the coolest thing ever because the wheel, so I sent a picture of the knife to the group so the other two guys could check it out. The one that I saw, which was the black hot rod with the red flames.
Yeah. California kid.
Yep. And then you had
Great.
I think I saw two. Did you bring two to that show in New York in 2010, I think, or 9?
Probably.
Yeah, I don't remember what the other one looked like though, but I clearly remember the black and red one. And then but the wheels were fully functional in a close position, in the open position, and you kind of roll around. You could play with it as if it was a Hot Wheels car. I wish I was looked at it back then with the eye that I have now to really inspect it. I haven't seen this knife in person since then. To really see how you have the construction going.
The exposed side pipe is the lever to actuate the automatic. Well, that's pretty impressive.
That is pretty cool.
You should definitely, Phil. We'll post one of these on our podcast Instagram, but you should definitely post some photos of these. I don't really see them on your Instagram.
They're not on my Instagram. Some of them might. I have a Facebook group, Phil Booth, Knives and Weird Stuff. I think there's some in there. Yeah, I'd like to see one again. I have one. I have my original hot rod, and I had to buy it back. I sold it,
There you go.
and
It's still one of the coolest customized I've seen today.
They were thank you, thanks. They were God. One of them was made entirely out of ivory.
Oh, wow.
Even the tires were ivory. So that inside it I carved 4 skulls and put them on magnets so that the skulls would stare out. It was a chopped sedan. Yeah, they were. I was very proud of the outrageousness of them. Really,
They're just very uniquely different, especially when I saw them. It was pretty much my introduction period to the custom knife industry in itself. And then I saw just to understand, like, oh wait, people make knives with their hands and they go for this much money, and this is all custom made and it's possible. And then I saw that thing like my first or second year, and I was like, huh, oh, it's kind of through a loop there. Now, what were the tires made out of on that the hot rod one with the flames?
Black micarta, old school, not paper, not linen, but just black micarta, and then blasted, and then they would turn flat black, and there was a lot of paint, and since I was making something that was made to be outrageous, I thought how cool it'd be if they would blow a cap. And what I mean now is where the blade would strike the spacer bar to stop, as it were. Now
like
these
a
things
cap
were,
pistol?
yeah, there was a
Wow, now that's thinking outside the box.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Where the whole show would turn around and be like, "What just happened?"
Yeah, they I was using either a number 10 or a number 11 black powder percussion cap, and I would make the nipple, put the nipple on, the nipple would be the stop at that point, and then you would push the cap on it, and if you whipped it with your wrist, it'd blow the cap.
Damn,
And
that's awesome.
That's amazing.
It was the only time I see a maker encourage a wrist flick.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's true. These
No,
things
you
were
gotta want a wrist. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't remember much from that. Like, I don't remember much from that show. I was like 14 years old, maybe 15, probably 14. But all I remember from that show was trying to figure out if I should buy a Strider Sabenza and that knife. I remember walking up, seeing that knife. Phil rolled it around a couple inches to the left, a couple inches to the right, and he goes, "You want to see something really cool, kid?" I'm like, "Sure." And he put a cap on there and flicked it open, and like everyone just stopped. I was like, "Oh, okay."
That's pretty cool. To be fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Huh. And so now you're saying you only made obviously, given the time and materials involved, you only made a handful of these. Where are they now? Do you have any idea? Did you keep track of them? Like you were saying, there may be pictures of them. I hate that idea that there are these custom knives out there that no one can see. We always forget to take enough pictures or videos of these things.
I think I have pictures of all of them. I'm not sure about the ivory one. There was a gentleman in Washington that bought one, and not from me, actually. I sold it to a jeweler, and the jeweler sold it to him, and then he contacted me, and I think he has 4 of them.
Oh, wow.
And let me see, one's in Russia. A couple of them are in Illinois. You see, one's in a friend of mine has in the Detroit area. That's the titanium body 57 Chevy.
That's legit.
Titanium.
Then,
Wow.
Yeah, I could only usually find 2 of them online.
I see one that looks like a 5-winded coupe, like a 32. Ford.
Oh, wait. Nope,
Kinda.
found some more.
What color?
It's black.
That would be the California Coupe.
Okay.
Oh no, is that a flipper?
No, it's a 4-window, and it's like got red wheels with white line tires, white walls.
Oh, the white wall's red. Okay, I'm looking at that one too. It kind of has a very open L looking blade shape. Kind of.
Yeah, kind of a little bit.
Sand blade shape. I think I saw this one. You might have had this one at the show with the other one.
Was it much smaller?
Yeah, it was a bit smaller, a lot narrower blade, non-Damascus, just normal steels.
Yes, that was at the end of that period of making those. Those were it was like a full fendered, fat fender hot rod. And those were flippers. The rest of them were switchblades, but those were flippers, and those were nice. I just came across my drawings for those, and I'm looking at that, and I'm going, dang, I ought to make another one of those someday,
Yeah.
You definitely should, just because no one's really made anything like that in the last 10 years since you have.
That is unto itself.
Thank you.
I think he's looking at the one that I'm looking at on your WordPress website. There's two on the same photo under the hot rod.
Mm-hmm.
So these were all custom one-offs. You ever took orders for these? You just kind of made what you wanted to.
I made what I wanted to. I have a really, I have a hard time taking orders. It turns what I love into a job in one quick heartbeat. And considering that I'm 68 now, and I've been working since I was 14. I tell people, when people want minnows, I tell them, what, the best thing that you can do is just let me go, and I'll build what I think is the best thing that I can build with the best materials, and but I don't know how guys can do that. Work out of a book. I like to build, and I also like the freedom of deciding that you get that wild hair in your butt, and you decide that, by God, I think I'll make a hot rod knife. And if you've got a book of orders, you never get to make that hot rod knife, because you're filling orders, and so I don't, don't you, you guys all hear about knife makers, that really successful ones, and sorry about that. And they have like they say, oh, I got a 5-year backlog, and that just blows me away, because I don't know what I'm going to be building in 5 years. I don't know. I'm going to let myself go, and I'll be building what I hope, what I want to build in 5 years.
Right.
Have some creativity, like not be pigeonholed into making the same thing over and over.
When knife makers tell me they have a 5-year backlog, I just call them liars that don't know how to estimate time.
Yeah,
it's like when you put through the math, it's like you got 5 years worth of work. How'd you factor that in? Like, I was like,
very slow knife making.
Yeah, it's like what are you making?
Incredibly slow.
I work off books, but that's just because I like the comfort, like like financial comfort, and that way it's like, oh, if I finish this, I'm gonna get paid. And right now, I just finished my books, and I'm kind of like all those 22 hours on the bench are like no books, and like that makes me feel uncomfortable. And I decided this way around now that I have someone that works with me. So we took the 22 knives, we set lock and detent on all of them. And what I think I'm going to do is now do a pre-order. And this way it's like just quick turnaround since they're already all tuned up. I just have to just finish them based on the order. But I do, like in the beginning when it was on books, I do miss not like just making stuff whatever I want to once in a while. Like I try to every 10th knife or so. But then again, just builds are so expensive. I can't always take the chance to just build something that's one-off.
You gotta let yourself flex, man.
Yeah, well, we talk about that all the time. It is what it is.
You know, like all knife makers, as soon as you start making knives and you realize that there's a market and, you want to be a full-time knife maker. I was one of those kind of guys that all the way through my life, I worked various jobs, and my various jobs also supported my art. Because I'm a painter and a printmaker, also. And so I was kind of always, a part-time maker. Because you got to have a job, you got to, so I worked my way out of a job and into full-time knife making in 2000. Eased my way out of a job, and then I hit it hard. I was grinding knives and, going to a lot of shows and, traveling a lot, working hard. And, after 5 years, it took me, I don't know if it took me that long, but what I figured out about myself is that I was too social to spend that much time alone in my shop. And, it wasn't the best for me. I worked very hard. I never made enough money let's be honest here. But my wife had a career, and I'd give her all the credit in the world. She might be the reason I got to make hot rods.
Good to have a team. That's important.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, I just lost my train of thought. Damn.
I talk about how long hours, being alone, pretty much gets lonely. But yes. I feel you on that one. I have no windows in my shop. Just the day goes on, the sun goes up and down. I don't even realize it.
That's hard work, Nick.
Yeah, we're just kind of left there in our own madness.
Yeah. So I was reading my local newspaper, and the hardware store uptown needed part-time help. And now when I say my town, I live in Ithaca, Michigan. It's 2,500 people. And it's a farm community. If it's not woods around here, it's cornfields and bean fields. It's a nice, safe, small town. And this is the same hardware store, of course, that I've been buying and charging stuff for the last, 20 years. And so I went up to the hardware store and put in my application because I knew everybody. And I told him, I said, "Hey, Gordon," I said, "Yeah," I said, "Well, I'll take the job." And he says, "Well, Phil," he says, "I can't offer it to you until, we got 4 more days." And I said, "Well, okay." I said, "But, if you offer me the job, I'm coming to work." And so I waited, I walked home. I mean, we're talking about 3 blocks, So I walked home. It was a sunny day. Walked back down into my shop. I'm looking around there. I'm going, yeah, it's pretty dirty down here. And I'm going, yeah, guess what? I flipped the lights off because I knew I was going to get the job. They called me up. I got the job.
There you go.
And I went to work 3 days a week, 10 hours a day. And man, all of a sudden, had cash that came in every single week. I got to work 3 days. I got to see every human being. I knew everything that was going on. Working in a hardware store can be, a lot of fun if you're a hardware kind of guy.
I did the same thing part-time when I first started making knives, actually, so I know what you mean.
And it was instantly, the artwork in my knives was raised. I wasn't making knives for money. All of a sudden, I'm sure that there were, at that time now, understand, I had a list of people that I was supposed to make knives for. I don't think any of them got them. God bless them if they're out there listening. I owe you, but that's just the way it went.
Yeah.
So then working part time at that store and working in my shop, my knives got better, and I was able to do. I don't know. It was happier and it was better. Of course, 6.5 years later, the hardware store did close. Okay, but I was 60 and so I'm back to full time.
There you go. I mean, that's sometimes that's important to sort of have a break, to step away from something, not fully, but to take a step back to get perspective on whatever craft you're doing, or whatever it is you're doing, and get perspective on it. It helps you sort of refresh.
Well, it sure did me. It was good for me and learned a lot, and so yeah, I'm a happy guy.
So if I can step back just a second, the automatic thing. How did you go about learning or teaching yourself how to make automatics? You were talking about going to a class of Mel Pardue's, and then you made scale release minnows. How did you figure out the scale release mechanism? Was that a switchblade? What's the right term for it? How'd you go about that?
I have been addicted to switchblades like all my life. I had a friend whose dad brought him back a switchblade, and this is when I was, 8 or 10, and my buddy had to take that knife out of my hands because I would just click, 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 click. I was a junkie from the first. So in 1995, I went to Bob Cargill. 1997, I went to Mel Pardue. That class was just full of switchblade information. Even if we weren't doing it, everybody was talking about it, and drawings and everything. And then in 1999, I did take a switchblade class again down in Arkansas at the Washington School there, the ABS school, and Daryl Ralph taught that, and that was a smaller class, and boy, that one was fun. We had a good time. Daryl's and so then I learned how to do that, how to do everything better, than the crude stuff I was doing. So when early on, I knew that I wanted to build scale release knives, switchblade knives. I went to a show in, this was, don't know the year, but this was before I actually did a show. This is back when I was making hunting knives like everybody, and sewing the leather. Went to a show in Detroit to see what other knife makers, what that really looked like. And, and of course, same story that everybody has. I was blown away by the craftsmanship. It was crazy. And I met Chuck Stewart, switchblade maker from the Detroit area. And, he showed me what a scale release knife was. And they were the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. Stainless steel inlaid with abalone. And, and I'm holding this knife and I'm opening it, closing it, opening it. and looking at my crappy ass hunting knives that I laid on his table, for God's sakes. And and I said, wait a minute. I said, now how much for this knife? And he said, $750. And I said, you make your living making knives like this? And he goes, well, yes, I do. I set that knife on the table and I'm going, holy shit, man, I'm in. I was
Sold.
that was
All right.
that was it. And later on, after selling a whole bunch of those crappy hunting knives, I took my tiny wad of money, and I went out to the wife and I went out to Las Vegas, and did not do the show, but attended the Las Vegas Classic, I think it was called at the time. It was in the Flamingo, and Whiskers Allen, if you knew this guy, Mike Whiskers. Yeah, Mike was there, and I met him, and I was looking at his knives, and I bought one of his knives, and came home with one of his scale release knives, all screw construction. Chuck would hard pinned everything, made a pain in the ass. But this was Mike's was all screwed together, and I kept it and still have it, as a matter of fact. And then I called on the phone, and I talked to his wife, and I explained to her who I was, and she wasn't going to go out and get Mike because he was working. And I said, just want to know if you'd, will he show me a drawing on explain to me how he makes these, since I already bought one from him. And I'll tell you what, I don't know how long it was. It was a while, month probably. I got a handwritten letter from Whiskers with little drawings and stuff explaining to me how to wind the spring, and how to do this and tighten this, and set it up this way, and it's one of those little treasure things that I have, that that I still have. I keep it with the knife. It's the coolest thing. And that was really the beginning of me making scale release knives. I took his knife apart, copied the shit out of it, had to know that was coming, and taught myself how to make those.
Wow. That's a pretty intense. Yeah, Whiskers Allen is like a key part of Switchblade history that I've been trying to piece together for a little bit. Certainly a relatively important piece. His designs are still used today in name by ProTech with his bolster release.
Oh wait, that's him?
Yeah, that's Whiskers. The Whiskers, yeah. That's Whiskers Allen.
Oh,
that's Dave Silly. That's the thing. That Whiskers Allen is that's part of that. So, did you ever go to his shop? Were you able to, or you just went for it from a letter? Wow.
Yeah, a letter and a tracing.
Out of curiosity, do you make the smallest side opening automatic? I'm looking at a picture of the internals on one of yours right now.
I don't know if it's the smallest, but some of them are pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
The Minnow's got to be the smallest scale release, for sure. Definitely one of the smallest I've seen.
Yeah, it might be. With scale release, you can only, well, it's way easier to make a big scale release than it is a small one.
Right.
Because you have so much more geometry to deal with, and get really deep set locks, and now I'm an honest guy here, and the scale releases that I'm making now, I'm getting help water jet cut parts, and let me tell you how much easier that makes it when your locks, your lock's going to fit up.
I'm very familiar.
Yeah, and yeah, everybody's doing that, and I'm an old guy, and it took me a while before I thought that maybe I wanted to do that, and oh man, it makes the knife so much better.
Yeah, going about that by hand completely, trying to make a scale release is just that seems like a nightmare.
It's a lot of tuning and fiddling.
And then to replicate it and keep making them like that.
Yep. I used to make 2-blade scale releases too.
I've seen
seen
pictures
some
of that
now.
double-ended ones. Yeah,
The Model 27.
Yep. That's the minnow. Those are not. You know what? The 27 now. That's a push button.
I can't tell by the photo. Are both blades automatic on that one? Because I only see one button. It's not.
Yeah, it's on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay, because the photo is not two-sided.
Yes. Yeah, it's really just a 2-sided knife. On those knives where I have the 2 blades that come out opposite ends, I start out with a thick blade, and then grind half of each blade away so that they will nest in the same spot. And I've done a number of knives like that. It's kind of cool,
I saw.
I also
you did a double karambit, didn't you? With where the blade is an auto and then the ring is an auto.
Yes, sir. I did 2 of them.
2 of them.
The
Wow.
blade is an auto and the ring
Yeah.
is an auto.
The ring pops. It's like a double ender, except it's
Oh,
a
the
karambit.
ring
so
actuated
yeah,
too.
it's logical because the blade fires and the ring fires, which is super. I don't. That's super neat.
Simultaneously or individually?
I would imagine individually. Phil.
Individually.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was like, wait, how did you make that work with simultaneous? Okay, I didn't see that. Okay,
This early automatic work. This must have all been just leaf springs, right? Or you're saying you were winding springs.
I made most were coil springs, wind in
okay.
coil springs. They, let me see, how do I,
so I'm looking at a leaf spring that kind of looks like a lockback, I guess, with a leaf spring. Has a little bail on it. It's a on his Instagram. He has a minnow picture that's half open.
let me see, I'm going to go to my Instagram. Can I
It's
do that?
May 6, 2017.
Feel free to follow along at home. Grab your phone
Yeah.
and take a look.
Let's see here.
Got some scrolling fingers are working.
Oh.
Yeah,
I think
it's really easy to
I
find.
can do it. All right, so
It's on the right side, a little bit down.
Oh, sure. I put it on airplane so it wouldn't make noise. Now it's
Right.
going to work.
Yeah, it's a little Damascus minnow with a bail. You have one of the scales off of it. It kind of looks like it's a lockback almost. Yeah, it looks like a lockback. I think that's a leaf spring. It will be called leaf spring. It's just a little metal flat bar with the tapered end shoved into the backspacer and then pushing against the lockback. Or that might
Yes.
just be a lockback. If that actually, I think that's just a lockback.
It's on the right side.
Mhm.
It's all silver. It's got a bail on the back of it.
Yes.
No, that is, oh man, how did I do that? No, that is a scale release.
Oh, it is. Okay,
Yes.
because I can't. It kind of looks like a lockback mech, but then okay.
But the way I'm making a scale release now, you see the hole right up above, the back spring there.
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to put the liner on this knife, and then there's going to be a screw that's going to go right down into that hole.
Oh, so is the show side pinned, and that actuates?
Yes, and so
Oh.
you're going to slide the back of the knife up and down, and it's going to raise the lock,
Hmm.
and then
That's
the
a neat
blade
way to do
fires.
it.
That's well, that was the way that Mike Whiskers Allen did that.
So you're actuating the lockback by moving the scale. Now, is there a coil on the other side of the blade that's not visible?
That's exactly right. Yes.
Okay. So I got the whole mech now. Okay. 'cause
Yeah, the
it made
spring
it look like
spring
lock-
holds tension on the scale, and then the coil is what actually fires the blade. So it's
Yes, sir.
it's more of a return. It's like a return spring essentially that
Yeah.
pushes the scale back.
Without knowing that there's a coil on the other side of that blade, it just looks like a lockback mech.
I think the BRs from ProTech they're still pretty much the same. I haven't seen that picture you're referencing, but I've seen many of the inside of a
Yeah,
from
so essentially the show side is just held down by the pivot, and then that one screw that goes into what would be the lockback bar or the lock bar. It doesn't go into the actual backspacer. Okay, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Nick. That's how it works, and um, they are. It's one of my favorite knives. I used scale release all the way when I was driving the mail. You have to have a knife. Well, you got to have a knife anyway, whether you're driving the mail or, but also in the hardware store. I liked it because you could take your knife out of your pocket, open it, cut the rope, cut the string, cut the whatever, close it on your leg and put it away. Nobody ever knew that it was a switchblade anyway.
Right. No, scale release is a extremely it's an efficient way to open a knife. You just pull it out and actuate it. It's great.
I'm looking at one on your Instagram right now. We are talking about, I don't know if we're talking about this one. If not, it's the Mr. Shifter.
Oh yeah,
Because that thing looks very interesting. I'm
Mr.
curious.
Shifters, Mr. Let me see. I wonder where that is. See if I can find that.
Looks like you got some lightning strike on there and this weird inlay, and then something looks like a ceramic ball with a device.
Is it
screwed onto
the
frame.
red ceramic ball?
No, it's white.
Yeah. Oh, that's the first one.
Yeah, it looks like you got a sandmine blade on there.
The first one is it's a red ball. Okay, that's the first one.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at before. I thought it was supposed to be like an arcade machine or something. The red ball's on the left side. It's January 7th, 2016. Damascus blade. It's like a dagger grind.
Yes. And the Mr. Shifter is so you push that, and what that's going to do is it will raise up the lock bar and the blade will fly. So there again, this is a lock back knife, with it's like a double lock back. It's like a lock back to keep it open, like a lock back, and then there's a lug as you close the knife. The lock will fall into the lug on the bottom side of the blade, and it holds it tight.
So do you slide that ball with the apparatus thing?
Yep.
So you slide it up. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And it pushes it, 1/8 inch, quarter of an inch, and it pushes, you can see the screw, and it's hooked to the. Yeah, those were fun. I haven't done one of those in a while.
Yeah, because you got kind of like an overlay inlay thing, but it kind of hovers out there.
Yeah, it's why it's
floating.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, they were fun. I did it. I think I've done 3 Mr. Shifters. All of
I
those.
see the other one. He was talking about the 56 Nomad, I guess, with the red lightning strike carbon fiber.
Yes.
So I take it that comes from a shifter in a car, like a cue ball shifter, right?
Yes, it is.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, those were almost hot rod knives, but not really. But yeah, they were fun too. Let me see. There's another knife. I don't know. How do you find the dates? Oh, April 20th of 2016.
Let's see here.
So when you were hand winding coils, was that like you must have been using like a small, like almost round bar for them, right? And then heat treating that steel, or was it naturally sprung steel?
So it's naturally sprung steel. It is. I use music wire, and like piano wire, and by the correct diameter. And the coil springs that I make run between 22 and I think I got up to 33 thousandths. but that wire is it's already and I don't know, honestly, I don't know if it's heat treated or if it's work hardened and drawn.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you wrap it around a bolt, I mean the shank of a bolt, and you make a coil, and yeah, and you do it tight. I still wrap most of my most of my springs.
Oh, wow.
There are a lot of store-bought springs,
Yeah.
but and I use those too. But most store-bought springs hit a little hard for me, and I well, I don't like overpowered switchblade,
Okay.
and I see them, and it reminds me of well, everybody used to hang second gear, you slam your car into second gear. And I mean, you're
Yeah,
a kid,
sure.
you gotta do that.
Right.
And it ain't gonna hurt that transmission, once or twice. But my God, you hang second gear every time it hits second, and you're gonna wreck something. And it's the same with an overpowered switchblade; they will beat themselves up.
There's
And
a lot
so,
of torque involved there. That's true.
yes, and so I wind my own. It's first of all, it's not hard, but it has to be they have to be wound right. So yeah, making the spring is I just, when I sit down to make springs, I make 10 or 15 of them. Probably half of them make the cut, and the rest of them are they're funny this way, or they're funny, or they got a gap or whatever.
Now, what does the spring look? Is it like a dogleg spring where you got two bars going off each end, or is it bent in kind of like an L at the end?
It's bent at an L at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and then
so you have holes drilled in the blade in the frame instead of slots.
There's one slot in the bolster, and then there's one hole in the blade.
Oh, gotcha. See, I never so I'm trying to design a button release automatic myself right now, but I never contemplated making my own springs. I essentially just got different springs, and whichever one I'm going to end up using, just take to a spring manufacturer and have them make the spring. Never really thought about trying getting some piano wire and making them myself. I got to try
that. If you're doing a run though, Nick, it'd be really nice to have the spring made for you.
Yeah, right now I have some ProTech and some Kershaw springs, and that's what I'm kind of messing with.
Mm-hmm.
But but they're limiting because it's the one size.
Right.
Yeah, there's 3 sizes on the market. There's 3/8, 7/16, and half inches.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a half inch for a big knife. But
yeah, I never thought about the piano wire. Just for if there's a prototype in the future, like an odd size thing. It's something to consider for prototyping at least. I don't
make
think
that a piano wire. It's pretty neat.
It's good to know.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it's quote unquote piano wire. It's sold as music wire.
There you go.
So it could,
a little bit of mystery involved.
Yeah, I don't play guitar, but a guitar string, not one of those that's wrapped, not like a bass string, but the solid metal string, if that sucker's about 30 thousandths, that'll make a good spring.
I think it's piano wire because I've seen piano wire, guitar wire, and piano wire is a bit stiffer.
Okay.
And a bit thicker. The guitar wire is a lot looser.
The guitar string has no spring tension to it at all.
Yeah, it just kind of
especially the thin strings.
Oh, okay. Well, if they don't have any, then it's got to be piano wire.
Oh yeah, they're real loose. I mean, they come wrapped in and circles, and you just unwrap them and string them up, and yeah, they're. I mean, a base wire maybe.
Yeah, but base wires are
still,
coiled.
yeah, the core of it, but still, it's like flimsy. It's not.
Well, it's
Most
good
of
to
them are
know
like
for
that.
future stuff.
You could probably make something.
What was the reception like the first couple times that you brought switchblades to shows from other makers or from clientele?
Well, it was good, because the our government was telling us that well, you can't have one of those, and so there were, a number of knife makers that were just law breaking guys, I guess, and
Mel Pardew being one of them.
yeah.
Did you hear about Mel? Do you know Mel Pardew's story of him getting kicked out of the show in California when he made his first frame lock flipper?
No.
Yeah, I guess I thought it was like an automatic or something.
Yeah. Oh, so Mel made Mel's apparently Mel's one of the first guy to do a flipper. I think he said the early 90s or late 80s, and he brought it to the California Custom Knife Show back then. And they almost arrested him. They kicked him out of the show because automatics are very illegal. And they accused him of making an automatic knife for the show. And they wouldn't believe him that it was not an automatic knife. It was just a flipper with a stiff detent. And they were ready to put him in handcuffs. They were kicking him out of the show, and he had to take it apart and explain to him that it's not an automatic knife because no one's ever really seen the flipper back then. Something that just snapped open like that. So I guess the laws are worse back then than they are now.
The laws now are changing quickly. What used to be illegal in Michigan is now completely legal. It's our knife rights guys. There's knife rights, and there's what's the other one? American Knife and Tool Institute.
Oh yeah, AKCI.
Yeah, and both of those groups are working to get these laws changed, and none of the states in the Midwest had legal switchblades, but Michigan does, Wisconsin does. It's a changing thing. They're going after old and archaic laws, and they're doing a good job. But I tell you now, all the way through the 2000s, there, it was really easy to make a switchblade knife, make it pretty, take it to a show and sell it. Because guys say, well, isn't that illegal? And you'd have to say, well, I would give them it's a gray area.
It's a little iffy, but
it depends on the end user. That's always
if no one's the wiser, you'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, for collectors, it's fine.
That's right. And I would tell people, I said, well, you know what? Here's the deal. A switchblade knife in the pocket of an 18-year-old kid that's had a few beers and gets pulled over by the cops is a bad thing. If I'm 68, cop pulls me over and he looks at the knife, I'm not going to they're not going to do much,
Right.
They're going to say, don't you know better? And I'd say, well, I do now.
Yeah, it's perception. It's the placement of the item, at the wrong period or wrong time can certainly garnish unwanted attention.
Yes.
Yeah, I carry a little automatic. It's convenient at the shop, and I just like to play with it. But I was always hoping if that ever happens, I'm like, oh, hey, I made it. I'm a knife maker. Here's my card. You need some knives sharpened? I got you, officer. Start playing that card.
Nick immediately starts to bribe the cop. Nice. That's good.
All the local cops in my area are my shop. I sharpen all their knives.
I have this card, sir.
I have this card.
Here's my card. You need your knife sharpened? I got you.
You know what? Chances are that officer's gonna want that knife. Well, I want a knife like that. Well, sure you do. Everybody wants a knife like that. But it was easy to go to a knife show and sell, $400 and $500 really pretty switchblades. That was an easy sell, because you could tell a guy, well, yeah, you're not supposed to have that because the government says you're not supposed to. First thing they do is they go for their wallet. Well, by God, if they say I can't have it, take my money.
Then it must be great. I've got to have it. There you go. I mean, switchblades have always been sort of, they're becoming less of a faux pas, certainly, but certainly
I know a little bit about that.
Yeah, the more interesting and gray areas, it's a nice area to exist in, especially for those knives with springs.
Now, have you made any dual actions?
I did. It's been a while now. I made a number of double action knives. Not very many. There's. I think that you can make some really good high tech ones that work real well. Man, Matt Disson does a scale release, double action scale release. I don't know how he does it. They're fabulous knives.
Diskin?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the Revolution. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, they're all right.
Yeah.
Matt, I know you're listening out there.
Yeah, Matt was on one of the episodes earlier.
Oh, yeah, Matt's a good guy.
Yeah, we're all pretty familiar with Matt. I had one the same year I bought your Twerp was I think the year that I bought Matt's Fire.
Oh, okay.
Pretty sure. I think he was like right behind you or something like that. It was I think it's either 2010, 2011, or 2012. I think it's probably 2011.
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, Matt might be responsible for putting that word into the common lexicon. It was fire. Wasn't that a big thing at that show?
Oh yeah, well because he showed up to the show with like 20 of them, and they were $350. And like this is like before the knowledge that people had of like what that thing was, and they saw
an automatic,
a custom knife, something like that. It was finished cool, lightning strike carbon fiber, which was really in back then. And what happened was, me and Jeff Blavel bought one, and we just literally walked around the show and like showing it to everyone. And one after the other, I was like, "Oh, where'd you get that?" And just kept pointing it to Matt,
selling it for Matt.
And yeah, by the end of the show, pretty much he sold out. Everyone bought one.
Should have took a fee. I'm surprised you didn't ask for a fee, Nick.
No, it's a cool knife.
Yeah,
it was probably more Jeff than me who really was showing it through.
I mean, sometimes that works.
So yeah, Phil, I guess you're one of the few that has made a dual action and has the knowledge.
Oh, I was never real. It was never one of those things that I liked a lot. Somehow I thought it was a lot of pressure on the. I don't know, not much of a pin that's holding the spring, and they were decidedly hard to make, or at least hard the way that I was making them. And I thought it was a lot of fiddling around, and I just liked a single action switchblade. I just don't want to hide it. Don't want to. Yeah, that's what it is. Push the button and blam, the blade goes out. Because it's fun.
Yeah.
It certainly is.
No, I mean, like, ever since I met Jeremiah, like, especially within the last year, I've been kind of pretty infatuated with automatics again. Like, I started collecting knives because of them again. I sold off my whole collection like 5-6 years ago. And it's like the last 2 years, I have about 10 automatics now, and now I kind of want to build some.
Every new knife that Nick gets is an automatic.
Yeah. Well, I got to automatic side opener button locks, dual actions, and OTFs nowadays. I carry them all to work because everywhere else in New York will get me arrested.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've never made an out the front.
That's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. I own a couple, but they're cheap ones. You know what they are, the NATO military and all that stuff that came out in the 80s or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I like the sound of the Switchblade. I like that schnick and the sound of the polished and hardened steel, smacking. I just, it's just to me a great sound that an out the front doesn't have. Out the fronts are BA, they're badass, but they don't have the classic snick.
Yep.
And yeah,
there we
like
go.
There it is.
Yes.
There's something pretty pleasing about it. I mean, it's definitely
Yes.
it's satisfying as hell.
I agree. It's a funny. It's nice. I like it.
It was definitely fun to play with and fidget with. Sorry, Phil.
Oh, that's all right. No, Harley Davidsons have sold millions of motorcycles, and quite honest, a lot of it's the sound.
Oh yeah.
I can't think of a. It's recognizable. If you're a gearhead kind of a guy, it's a beautiful sound.
Especially on a knucklehead.
Oh, gee. Yeah, all of them really, but yeah, the old ones are, they're just, it's just a beautiful sound.
Yeah.
And so, Switchblades are, they don't sound like a Harley, but still,
I hear that noise every day. They opened up a Harley dealership out in the service center down the street from my shop now. So I go in there like every couple of weeks. So they drive up and down the street all day.
Of course, that original sound was just the engine killing itself, and the new ones are just tuned to sound like that. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, you gotta tighten up the bolts on it like every week.
Yeah. The engine timing involved to make a potato is really just that's the engine timing all screwed up, and yeah, that's conversation for another time. But yeah. Nonetheless,
how do you time a motorcycle engine?
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Potato.
Yeah, the new one. Yeah. The new ones have to sound like that, or else no one would buy them. But they don't have to sound like that. The original ones just sounded like that because the engines were just like tolerances and timing were not what they are now. So that
they were thrown together in the garage.
Yeah,
but romantic nonetheless.
But
that's right.
Blades. All right, so wow, so yeah, absolutely a forever love of automatics till this day. You're still making the Minnow. In scale release. You still make these knives. You're making them now to bring to Kentucky.
Yes, I am.
Wow.
So now let's talk about a little bit more modern stuff. Now recently, last couple of years, you got some collaborations going with CRKT.
Yes.
So, about 2 or 3 models with them, I think.
So it's 3 models.
And they all have your like signature mid bolster. What do you call that? A lot of your frame or line lock designs, you usually have material on top, material on bottom, and that little bolster strip in the middle.
Yes. The stripe is the stripe is pure design. I still like to I like to parallel all my lines. I like the plunge grind on my blade to parallel the stripe, that has been inlaid into the handle material. That's important to me,
Oh, I never realized that. I'm looking at that now.
Yeah, and it's quite honest. It doesn't make it a better knife. It's just one of those things that. That I can do.
Yeah, but it's something that speaks to me like, oh, that's a Philip Booth. Like that.
That's signature.
It's what the signature. Yeah, it's what I'd consider that one of your signature parts of your design, like the spider claw hole.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
that rip snort cleaver that you do with CRKT, that you did that as an auto for a while, right?
I have done autos in those. That began its life as a liner lock, frame lock. But through the years, I have learned that those my flippers will also make a pretty darn nice automatic. You get rid of that flipper tab, and you build a mechanism, and I use for the backspacer, instead of using a backspacer, that's going to be the spring. They work pretty good.
There you go.
They look cleaner too without the flipper tab.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just get rid of because the geometry is all the same, and then you end up with a with a lever release or some kind of a release, and a liner lock, and that's a strong knife, because liner locks are, they're everybody knows, that's good stuff. And then you mix that with a spring, and mix that with a spring and a release, and you got a very cool switchblade.
Hell yeah.
As a matter of fact, the littlest of the Columbia River knives is the Snicker, and that's their version of my twerp.
I'm looking at that right here.
Yeah, that's my twerp, and then there's a Snarky, but it's the rip snort that's the good seller, and they've done another run of it. Matter of fact, if you go to Columbia River's website and buy it from them, they did a run of rip snorts with a D2 blade.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, which is pretty fun. Rip snorts are were by far the best selling of all three of those knives. Columbia River is a very good and easy kind of a company to deal with. They're great guys, and they do a good job for you get a lot of bang for your buck from a Columbia River, without being too expensive. They make a lot of $50 and $60 knives, and they're good knives.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a huge value there, and I mean, it's awesome to, it is important for those companies to exist and translate, custom designs from you and from other makers, transfer those designs into the hands of people who otherwise, honestly, just might not have the cash to front for a knife like that, but still, it's cool for them to enjoy, an interpretation of a custom knife design, at an amazing value, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
Nice
Columbia
people.
River, yep, and they've been fun to work with. I keep firing them off designs. They don't accept them all, though.
This was pretty neat. It's not really a name for it. You made it for Kentucky in 2016. It's kind of your butcher, but like a small one. Just short and stout. There's not really anything about it.
Is that?
Oh, is it a
red lightning strike handles? It's like an inch and a quarter blade. It's like looks like the butcher beaver or cleaver beaver. I'm not sure what you call the other one.
Beaver cleaver.
Yeah, so it looks like a tiny beaver cleaver.
What are we talking about here?
Whatever you like, Elijah.
Okay, so that is a push button automatic minnow that I put a cleaver blade on.
It also has an old school scale release mechanism, YB normal, and KYCKS bound.
It does flow nice with the
Oh, is that the red
shears foot
handle
kinda.
one?
Yeah, it has the red lightning strike carbon fiber.
Yes.
It has a pretty big finger choil in the handle.
Yes. 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 That is a one-off knife.
Yeah, I've never seen it besides here.
No.
So
And I made that to go to the show, and I'm sure if I went down in my basement, I would probably find the drawing and maybe even a jig pattern to draw around.
Oh wow.
it's pretty neat. When the handle's very symmetrical looking, the front of the bolster and the back of the handle, very similar. The peak in the middle and the choil's like right in the middle of the handle.
Yep, that was a cool knife.
It's a pretty cool design.
I should make some more of those.
There we go. Say.
I'll find that and make some more. That's it.
I got to get you to make me a hot rod switchblade.
You know, I've often thought that I should reinvent that.
I would love to have something like that in the shop. That would fit in very well, placed upon high in a glass case in the VIP. That is a great curiosity that I would love to show people.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. I probably do that.
All right, yeah. We'll be in touch. I'd love it.
That sounds like a fun thing.
Yeah, I'd love to see a new one after all these years. Unfortunately, those were one of those things that kind of disappear into collections.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's one of the interesting things about minnows is man, I've made a lot of them. Honestly, I don't know. Last time I figured it out, it was over 300 though.
Wow.
And they don't come back on the market very often. Sometimes they do, but generally speaking, they go home, and they go into somebody's collection and there they stay. Which I take as a sincere compliment. It's very kind. Yeah. Most people,
it's a lot of collectors these days have ADD. They'll get something. They'll chase something for about 6 months. They'll finally get it, and they'll get bored of it 10 days later, and on to the next thing.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. No. When someone buys a knife and they cherish it and keep it, I would take that as a huge compliment.
Mm-hmm. I have. There's a customer in Wisconsin that. In the Chicago area, where I do a show every year in southern Wisconsin, the Badger. As a matter of fact, there's another club show, the Badger Knife Show, Badger Knife Club. And there's a guy who bought a minnow from me in 1996, and this is a lockback. This is actually before they turned automatic. And he has carried that in his pocket ever since. And it was Damascus and jig bone. I mean, it's still Damascus, but it's amazing what 20 years worth of pocket polish will do to a knife. And it's just the most beautiful thing, and it's funny, and every year, he comes to the show, he walks by, he goes, "You want to see it?" "Yeah, I want to see it." And he pulls it out of his pocket, and he has carried it forever. And the reason I say it used to be Damascus is, it's pretty polished now.
Yeah.
Still got lines in it, but don't look like it used to.
That's awesome.
It's a very kind thing.
Yeah, but the knife that I carried today, it was like the fourth folder I made. That was mechanically not up to par, but it was anodized at one point, and there's no sign of anodizing on that thing at all. After 6 years, I think.
Sure.
It looks like a great tumble knife.
Nick, I kind of like that stuff too. I like that wear, that
lived in kind of look.
Yeah. Yeah. It's basically they are a tool, and we might as well use our stuff, because there's everybody makes a lot of pocket, or safe queens, and I've made a lot of those too. And I don't mean to, that's also a compliment, but those ones that get used and not wear out, but just polish. I don't know. It's what I like.
There was something. There was one more thing I did want to ask you about. One more auto that I came across while doing a little bit of research. And it was the modern Godiva scrimshaw. It was a dagger you did with a nude on it. I don't know if you did the nude or the nude was applied to it, but it was a very interesting piece that caught my eye. I don't know if you.
What's a nude?
Naked lady.
A naked lady.
Like an actual nude. Okay, I was
it's when you take your clothes off, son. That's how that works.
I did do that. Yeah.
Oh, you did the scrimshaw?
I did, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's it was a small dagger, and then the scrim was on the backside of it. And I did it, and it was okay. I can draw, but scrim takes a very light hand, and I was maybe a little heavy, on my dots and things. But after I did, and I did it just to do it, then it was well, you know what? Hell, I felt a little funny about it, because I was standing there, and dang, there's a naked girl on my table. And I
pretty good to me.
But it was, I don't know, made me feel a little funny. That was pretty rare. Matter of fact, I expect that's the only naked lady. She was kind of cute though.
What show did you bring that to, out of curiosity?
Wow. Yep. You got me. I don't know that.
So I'm not too familiar with the process of scrimshaw. Is that carved or burned?
It's neither. It is poked and gently scratched into usually ivory, and that was ivory, and then the scratch and the needle dots are filled with ink, and they hold the ink in the white ivory, and then the ink is rubbed off, so you have black lines in the white. And then that process is done gently and lightly, over and over and over until you build the image.
Oh, so it's literally like a stick and poke tattoo. Okay.
Yeah, it's more like tattooing than it is anything else.
I never read up on it. For some reason I was like, I thought it was like carved and then burned and then sanded, because that's what it kind of looked like. But that's interesting. I didn't know it was actually like tattooing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I suppose it is. I don't have a tattoo. I think it hurt.
It's
Otherwise,
pretty much exactly like how a tattoo is done. And there's a method called stick and poke, and that's sounds like what you did there.
Which kind of makes me wonder. I wonder if you could use a modified tattoo machine on scrimshaw.
I assume that's the same thing. You use like an actual tattoo gun to actually scrimshaw.
It's possible.
Depends on how the needles
tattoo
are set
machine,
up.
Nick. Tattoo machine.
Yeah. I said machine. I didn't say gun.
You did.
Oh.
Nick's got to make me that inlaid one, and we'll find out.
Yeah, the reason I bring up scrimshaw is Jeremiah wants me to build him an MK1 with the inlay or a full scale out of some white ivory paper or micarta or something along those lines, and he has a friend that does scrimshaw work.
Yeah, I've had a thing for Scrimshaw for a minute now, so I need that fulfilled. But that that dagger was cool. A nude? No, probably not. I like that. I saw that, and I figured, I was like, oh, he did the back of the scale because he must have had it at a table, so you can kind of turn it over if you wanted to, and conceal it.
Kind of like Loveless style, where like the front lady on the front, the back lady on the back.
Yeah, just the backs, or just one of the scales is done on the knife, so you can sort of, if you're at a show, you could turn it over. Yeah, it was neat. I came across it, and I was like, oh, that's badass.
Yeah, the listing on Arizona Custom Knives, it's got like 04 date added, so it's pretty old. Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
That's very cool.
Yeah, Arizona Custom Knives has quite an archive of old stuff.
I can imagine. Yeah.
That they have sold through the years, and they've always been very good to me.
Well, that's good.
You hear conversations about somebody doesn't like somebody, or somebody likes somebody, and whatever. But Arizona's always been good.
If you've been doing it long enough, you've got the equal amounts. People like you and people don't like you.
I suppose, yeah.
No.
Yes, that's just the way it is.
Oh wow, it's legitimately a full nude. Okay.
Yeah, you were like, "What's a nude?" Oh, good times.
All right. Naked.
I like it.
So I've never seen colored Scrimshaw. Actually, I thought it was just kind of a process that was black.
Yeah, it dies after.
It has been indigo ink in the past. Or India ink, sorry. But you can use color. I mean, you scratch it and then you can color it however you want, essentially.
Oh, I don't know that. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sandra Brady does some really fabulous color scrim. Animals and stuff. I don't know that that scrim is as popular as it once was. You used to see a lot more scrim, and now it's a bit of a rarity.
Yeah, you really don't see it as much, especially in knives. I think with the advent of
modern folders, yeah.
Yeah, or just lasers. I think it's one of those arts that is probably not as popular, though. Whenever I see it, I love it. I like the way it looks. You can tell that it was done by hand.
Yeah, I've always been a fan. It's a dying art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe so. And of course, there's there's a lot of fashion in knife making. It's like like we were talking about, when you mentioned that, that's when lightning strike carbon fiber was really popular, because it's not very popular anymore.
No, it's a pain to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Anytime you machine it, just all the frays go straight up, and then there's an empty little pocket from where you're frayed out or pulled out.
Yeah, it's not my favorite stuff at all. But like first year I went to the Gathering, I think it was the Gathering 3. I don't know. It was when Toxic Green, Toxic Green was really popular.
Yeah.
And, it was Toxic Green this and Toxic Green that.
Emerson, the Toxic Green, and the USN. Everyone had the USN edition knife back then. For the shows, Toxic Green G10 was everywhere.
And now it's nowhere. You don't ever see that. But styles come and styles go. It's not. I don't think there's anything that's it's not like it's not like it's good or bad. It just is kind of, it is what it is. Right now, titanium frame locks are just as hot as they can be. perfectly smooth with the gorgeous finish on it, and that's what people want.
Mm.
You put toxic green on it, and ain't nobody gonna want it. So you're probably gonna go home with that one.
Frame lock flippers, man.
My favorite still is and will always just be normal carbon fiber.
Yeah, carbon fibers.
I was a fan of it before making knives, before collecting knives. I've always liked it, and just looks great. Just awesome material.
You always liked it until you started working with it, huh?
Yeah, and working with it sucks. You wear a lot of masks and whatever, but it works fine. You have to take a lot of safety precautions, and it makes everything messy because the dust is so fine that it just sticks to everything and stains everything.
Yeah, stains your fingers even. It's just
Yeah, I'll go after work. I'll go out with my friends, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, you look like a mess." I'm like, "Yeah, I worked with carbon fiber like 8 days ago."
8 days ago.
8 days ago.
Yeah, it doesn't come out of the pores really easily.
Yes, probably not good. Probably not good for you either, Nick. I don't know.
Hey, you're 68. You're still going, so
yeah, there you go.
I mean, it can't be that bad.
Yeah, well, that's true. God, I hope it's not. I still got 20 years left. I expect to be making stuff.
There we go. Hell yeah.
I hope to. Unless unless something changes. I expect to. I just met David Boy. You guys know that guy?
I've heard of him.
Yeah, Boy Knives.
Boy Knives. Yeah. Well, he was at the show, the Blade show now, and I was wandering around on Sunday morning in the small room, which is still the other room there, and and I'm looking over there, and it was David Boy, and so I went up, we talked to him, and I tell you what, it was weird. I got starstruck by this guy, because he was 85 or 86, and he's still running the business. And now his grandson, goes to shows with him, steers him around or whatever. And I was just as impressed with him as I could possibly be. And I told him, I said, man, this is what I'm aspiring to do. I want to be that 80-year-old guy, that's still making and selling knives.
No, that's when I see Mel twice a year, and every time I see Mel, I'm like, damn, Mel, you're still cranking it. He will run circles. Me and Rob work together often. I'm like, you run circles quicker than me and Rob would.
That's the way to do it, though. Keep on going.
Mel Pardew, for his age, that guy's a monster.
Yeah, look at Bob Drzola. I think knife makers don't really retire unless they want to.
Yeah, but
or have to maybe, but they keep going. Passion lives on.
Mm-hmm. It does. There's, I don't know how old Henry Frank was making really fine knives, and man, he was old too. And he was still making great knives. Ron Lake. Yeah, I don't know how old Ron Lake is.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
Ron Lake is, he's got to be the oldest still going.
Ron.
And he's got to be the best. I mean, his stuff is perfect, whether you like what he does or not, it doesn't, you pick up a Ron Lake folder and
the white gloves come out.
Yeah, they're just perfect. Then they're simple. They're simple.
Sure.
But simple's nice. I'm one of those guys, of course, that the Blade show. I you go around, you see all your friends and all people that and man, if there's one table that I always hit up every time I go to a show, and he's there, it's Paul Schindler. Paul's a dealer, and what the hell is he? Exquisite Knives or something.
Yeah, he does the New York Knife Show.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's a New Yorker guy. Or
yeah.
In that, Massachusetts or something. They're knife treasures. And anyway, he's got fabulous knives on his table.
You're talking about Paul Farina?
Nope, I'm talking about
okay.
Paul Schindler.
Paul Schindler.
Friends,
okay.
Yeah, friends with Paul Farina.
Paul Farina's from Mass.
Yep.
Was it like an AC, some guy or something? Yeah. Anyways, sorry.
No.
Let's get off on a tangent.
I'm the guy that goes up to Paul's table, and we chat for a little bit, and I look down and go, "Yeah, Paul, let me pick up that Michael Walker." and he always does. He's a good man, because he knows I'm not going to hurt it and be stupid. But I am out front enough going, yeah. You see that $35,000 folder? I want to open and close it.
Let me play with that for a minute. Give me that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And just about kills him, but but he does. He's a good guy, but I do. If I get a chance to pick up a Michael Walker or a Ron Lake, very gently and correctly open and close it, man, I'm going to do it. Because those knives are just out of this world.
I've seen plenty in cases at shows before, but I've never had the nerve to ask to actually hold one.
Yeah,
it's like that. That's like something special. Like when the guy's so good that you feel weird to ask to hold the knife.
If you went to TKI, you'd have the chance. That was the first time Michael had two on his bench at TKI, and I got to handle both of those. So the first time where I was actually able to look at them and fondle them properly and not be weird because the dealer is looking into my soul.
Don't drop that.
Yeah.
It's a house if you drop that.
Yeah, he was at the Paris show last year when I was there, and I just didn't go over. I didn't have the chance to go over and say hey. One of these days.
Whenever I'm like, well, sir, may I please look at your work? This is the one chance. I said the same. I was like, dealers have them, but they always look into my soul, and I don't want to ask to look.
He's like, sure,
check them out.
Look at it. Go for it.
Pretty much. Look lower. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, you kind of have to do that stuff. Otherwise, it's we were talking a little bit a while ago about awards at the Blade Show. I tell you what, at 3:30 in the afternoon on Friday at the Blade Show, every single one, I march my little self down there and enter a knife in something. Not because I think I'm going to win, but because it gets me into the room for 30 minutes where the knife makers will bring their very best knife and lay it down for composition. And so, in that 30 minutes, you can see the best of the best at the Blade Show. And I mean, it is an amazing room,
That's a good tip right there. Just
yeah.
enter to go.
Yes, absolutely. You just lay your knife down and then hang around till what I do is I go in there, I lay my knife down, then I hang around till they tell everybody, yeah, it's 4:00, you gotta go. Okay. I'll go back. Okay.
Yeah, just leave them there.
Yep.
So before we have a pretty much once edited, a little over 2 hours solid episode. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we start wrapping it up?
You know what? I got a whole bunch of notes, but this has been a wonderful conversation, gentlemen. And
well, if you have some stuff to plug, some stuff you're working on, some shows, you should definitely mention it before we wrap up.
Okay. You know what? We covered all of my stuff really well. I am doing, and I'm always kind of now starting to look for shows. But there's a show in Wisconsin, third weekend of March. It's the Badger Knife Club. It's their annual show, and it is one of the best run small shows. 200 tables, probably 160.
That's still pretty large. That's more than New York.
It's bigger than New York, yeah. And this show brings in a lot of people. They'll get, I don't know if it's like New York numbers, but they're going to get a couple thousand people that are going to come through this show. And it's very close. The tables are very close together. Not much room but in between tables, and sometimes those aisles are so full that it's hard to get away from your table, and you don't see that a lot. But I like shows that are crowded. I like shows that where there's too many people, and where the aisles aren't so wide, because I think it brings a certain amount of excitement into the room. If you have not enough people or too big a room, then people can gently stroll by everything. You guys know how it is at the Blade Show. Blade Show's back. And that's why the Blade Show is a good show, because the whole thing is very exciting. So this little show in Janesville, Wisconsin, which is just over the border from Illinois, is just a great show to see. And it has, because it's a club show, it is collectible jackknives. It is military stuff. It is materials, a lot of custom makers, a lot of good makers, go to that show. Peter Martin's always there. He's a Wisconsin guy.
So you're telling us the crew has to make a little road trip out to Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Well,
Wisconsin, Milwaukee, go Bears.
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half north of Chicago. So it's not bad, but it's it's going to snow. You can just count on it.
Fingers crossed.
It's going to snow. Just count on it.
Yeah, it does. Every year
it's like
it
an Arctic winter in July there.
Yeah, but yeah, that's I like that show. I do that show. Kentucky show's a great one. Blade, of course.
You still the USN?
You know what? No, I'm not. I did the USN for I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and the deal with the USN, and now the USN, I thought was always a good show. It was fun. It was party, and it's Vegas, but if I go to the USN, it's on Labor Day weekend, and living in Michigan, you take your summer seriously, because I'm telling you what, you've got
it's pretty short-lived.
Yeah, and the last time that I went to the gathering, I had to work all the way through August, which is the nicest month of the year. And I, and I told him, I said, you know what, you guys, I'm not doing this. I said, why don't you just have this damn show in November or January or February or March or November?
Not the hottest time in Vegas either.
Yeah, not that. It gets hot in Vegas, and truthfully, I didn't want to work through my summer.
Yeah.
And so I bailed out of that one. And I've heard a lot of guys did, but there again, shows, they come and they go, and I'm not sure about the new Las Vegas show. I think it's 2 days this year. At the end of the SHOT Show, is it?
Yeah, well, they had it last year. That was the Vegas Classic, the one you mentioned prior.
Yeah, it's bringing back the Las Vegas Classic.
It was pretty great this year because of TKI. I exhibited there. They're good. But I'm not doing it this coming show, I don't think, because there's no TKI to support it.
I was actually thinking about doing it. I was just talking to Jared last night about
It's
this.
true, man.
You just want an excuse to go to Vegas.
No, I'm gonna go regardless. I have to do shot with weed,
Oh,
yeah, I'm thinking about doing that show because what the heck?
Well, I signed up to do it until they moved TKI, and
I might talk to Steve about it in New York.
That weekend is so expensive for me in Vegas for me to go to that show. I don't think collectors are going to really show up necessarily to take the risk to go out there for all that expense. Plus, I also spend a lot of money while in Vegas. Aside from
there will be some shot show overflow, and that's about it. I think.
I think the shot show will bring in a lot of.
If it didn't have that, then yeah, that would be weird. But it's got shot. I mean, it's still good.
Yeah,
it's still one of Steve's shows. So
yeah.
Steve promotes well.
He does. Yeah, 50/50 does an excellent job. All those shows are great. I sponsor those shows. They're great.
There's a plug.
And so TKI has been moved to a different time, right? In different place.
It's in Nashville. It's in Nashville. In February.
Nashville.
Because everybody got a little sore about how they were being treated in Vegas.
Yeah, a little bit. Even though they came back anyway, that's all right.
Yeah.
moved across the country, and so yeah, just do it in February, Nashville.
And so it's still set up as a one day show.
Yeah, TKI.
Pretty
as
much.
far as I know, TKI. Yeah. Yep.
One night, yeah.
We'll see how it goes. I think all three of us are going.
I'm gonna do my best.
Sounds like all three of us are going.
I'm okay.
That's good.
I'm gonna do my best.
Sounds
I'll
like
try.
all three of us are going. That's good.
No, I think all three of you are going now.
Yeah, all three of us are going, Nick.
I don't know, man. Dude, this year tapped me out.
Anyway,
we'll get Phil.
By Kentucky, that's 11 shows by Kentucky. That's not.
So Phil, we will see you. We will see you in Kentucky, right?
Yes, you will.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. That should be a great show this year, as always.
Yes.
So
a fast show.
Yeah.
Fastest show I've ever seen. Hopefully no fire alarms.
Not this year.
God, that was awful.
Yeah, that was pretty strange.
That was the first I've ever experienced. Like, I've never heard of anything like that happening ever.
It hit me at such a bad time when that alarm happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a fun show, fun scene. You know, I think that maybe the idea of the small and I don't know about intimate, but maybe intimate kind of a show is possibly the coming thing. You know, Kentucky works really well. You know, TKI.
Yeah, the new trend. Yeah.
Yeah,
I could see
and
that.
Then, I understand there's other shows that I don't. But you know, there's one in Arizona that's like, I don't know what the heck the name of it is, like the Frog Show or the Froggy. I don't know, but it's like, you know, 20 invited knife makers, and it's just a one-day thing. And
the Monkey Mustard might be what you're.
That's
yeah, Monkey Mustard.
Yeah. They I think they.
Oh yeah,
I think they did that this year.
Is it in Phoenix?
He did it.
Yeah, it's at Brady's shop at Monkey HQ there. I've never been. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's the monkey thing. That's right.
Yeah, it's that like cool hipster joint with the Monkey Mustard, Monkey's Edge, and then who else? You got Jade over there with his vest.
So you're saying it's your show?
No.
All right. On that note,
so we got to wrap it up. It's getting a bit late. So where can people find you, Phil?
You can find me on. I have a Facebook group. That would be Phil Booth Knives and Weird Stuff. I don't even know if you have to ask to join it, but you know, I go on there and put stuff on. I also have a regular Facebook, and that's just Philip Booth. That's also got some knives on it. Instagram, that is Philip Booth Knives. You can find me there. Not going to mention that website because I didn't even know it was still up. That is really old, and yeah. But you can find me those places. You get a hold of me, Blade Show. I've done Blade Show for I don't know. I'd have to do some math, but I think it was 98 was my first Blade Show. I dig Blade. It's fun.
There you go.
So yeah.
Hey, so you guys know where to get at him? Well, we tagging him on the Bladeology podcast Instagram. I'm Nick Trooper of NCC Knives. You could find me at NCC Knives on Instagram or nccknives@yahoo.com. So Nick Trooper out.
This is Elijah Isham of Isham Blade Works. You can find me at Isham Blade Works on Instagram, and same thing for the email at gmail.com. Signing off.
This is Jeremiah Burbank from PVK Vegas. You can find me there on the Instagram at my day job. I want to thank Phil for coming on. And another awesome episode of Bladeology. Thank you so much. This is Jeremiah signing off.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you, Nick and Elijah. This is Phil Booth. I guess I'm signing off too if everybody's going. Thank you, folks. It's been fun.
It was a pleasure.